Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe, live at pretty much 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with my buddy Rich. You may recognize him from the Chrono Trigger and Earthbound videos we did. Say what's up, Rich.
Hey everybody, it's Rich from Arizona. Good to be hanging out with you guys once again. Thanks to Mike for having me on his channel.
Always a pleasure. Rich and I, with the states being between us, we don't get to catch up too often, work and stuff. So this gives us a good excuse to hang out and bullshit for a little while and, have a good time with everyone. Um, so Rich and I wanted to talk about like just the horror genre in general and things we like in the horror genre, movies, games, and whatever else that kind of comes to mind. So, Rich, do you want to kick it off? You want to talk about some of your favorite maybe horror video games and why you like them or what they mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And by the way, thanks to you for accommodating me with the schedule difference. I'm 3 hours behind New York right now, so I appreciate Mike staying up late to record the video with me.
No problem.
Horror genre. I didn't play any when I was a kid, and I don't know if there were any horror video games that existed back in the early to mid 1990s anyway. But one of my all-time favorite horror games and games in general is Resident Evil 4. I think that's on a lot of people's favorite games list. I thought that game was a lot of fun. It had some issues with control, like all the Resident Evil games have. But I remember that being a very scary game. Maybe not as scary in the survival horror genre as the previous Resident Evil games, but from the opening when you're alone in that village that's like somewhere in remote Europe, and you're all alone, you're all by yourself, and you have these people chasing you with pitchforks and chainsaws, and you're trying to rescue this girl, and they have parts in the game that take place in the dead of night where you can barely see anything around you, and you're walking through all these creepy places. And I just remember thinking it was a really intense experience, especially the first time I played it. And I think even if I picked it up right now, it would still have that effect on me. Another cool thing about that particular game is that it's broken up into three phases. And I don't know if you've played RE4 before, but I'll let you chime in a moment. But it has three phases. The first phase takes place in this remote village somewhere in Spain. The second phase takes place in this medieval castle. And then the third phase is more sci-fi oriented, where you're on this island and you're dealing more with sci-fi elements like laboratories, experiments and stuff like that. So it kind of gives you a taste of three different tastes of the horror genre. And that's definitely one of my all-time favorite games to play. Did you ever play it?
I did. I don't remember it super well. I played through it with my friend Timmy. I have these friends that are brothers, Timmy and Brian. So anytime I play a video game online, it's either with one of them or both of them. So I played through it with Timmy, and he had beaten it already. But then he kind of, got me through it as well. I remember enjoying it. I didn't love it. I felt like it got very actiony and sort of departed from the horror a little bit, but I thought it was a good game.
Yeah, it did depart from the horror a bit, especially toward the end, when it got more into the sci-fi stuff. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it too, and that's something that a lot of people like. And it has its flaws, just like most games, and I think all of the Resident Evil games are flawed in my opinion. But
Yeah.
one of the games that I've probably played through from start to finish more than any other game that I can think of.
Okay. Wow, that says something. I'm just making a face because it says we're live, but then on YouTube it says resume. And then if I go onto the website, it's not showing it as maybe it's not live. Maybe it's live but not uploaded yet. I wonder what would happen.
So you can upload it later then?
I guess so. It's weird. I'm not sure if it's live at the same time or what. It's I don't see a chat room open. I don't know if people are seeing this.
Yeah.
But
meanwhile, I'm having trouble with my redneck lighter here. But I got it working.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. It's weird. I'm not seeing the chat room. Very strange. But
Well, maybe it's just recording on your computer and you can upload it later.
yeah. Um, okay. So I did recently play Resident Evil 7, and I really liked it. I did like a little review on my channel. Um, it starts out very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-ish, and I really liked it because it felt very intense. You know, you're getting chased around this house by these like lunatics, you know, and they can't really die. There's sort of almost like a supernatural element to them where you're attacking them, but you don't even know if you're hurting them. And then about halfway to three-quarters through the game, it got very sciency, and I wasn't a fan of where it went with the science stuff. Um, I felt like it sort of veered off from horror into like again like you know Resident Evil lore with like a virus and sci-fi stuff, and it kind of got a little too sci-fi for me. But it was very good. I'd give the game like an 8. I think it was a very good game. It's just the story wasn't my favorite by the end of the game.
Yeah, I played RE7 with some friends. We had like a marathon night, where we played it start to finish. And I agree with you. It did feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of setting in the beginning. Was very intense, when you're walking through that house and all the stuff going on. You have the grandmother in the wheelchair that pops up periodically, and it's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Things that I wasn't much of a fan of. And this is true maybe for a lot of horror games, but any game in which you shoot something in the head 2 or 3 times and it's still not dead bothers me. I feel like that's a problem in a lot of the RE games where you can shoot someone in the head like, once, twice, 3 times and they're still going. And that was the case from what I remember with those, those dark monsters in RE7, like the zombie creatures or whatever exactly they are. And I also agree with you that it's by the time you get to the end of the game, it really veers in like too much into sci-fi stuff and things of mind control, where it just got a little bit like you have to suspend your disbelief a little too much.
Right.
I wish they would stay more like with more realistic horror.
Yes.
Like more realistic events, if that makes sense.
I agree with you. I think sometimes when it gets a little too supernatural or too sciencey for me, it sort of takes some of the scare away because I feel like it's just so far-fetched where when there's a guy chasing you around the house with a chainsaw or a hammer, it seems a little more realistic, if that makes sense.
Right, as opposed to like this kid is manipulating what people see and hear. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. But
oh yeah, forget I said that, guy.
It's kind of you know what it reminded me of actually? Did you play the game Fear at all?
I never played Fear, no.
It reminded me halfway through the game when it went science fiction-y, it reminded me of Fear with there's like this little girl. They did like experiments to her and she's like manipulating things around you and you're seeing all this like, crazy crap. And that's of the feeling Resident Evil 7 went for. So it was good, but I felt like they went off into like Fear territory halfway through.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of go off track a little bit, but it's still in tone with what we're talking about with horror and sci-fi and stuff. Are you a fan of Stranger Things on Netflix?
Yeah, we watched seasons 1 and 2. Yep, they were good.
Yeah, I binge watched both seasons. I was very late to come on board with that, but I'm a big fan of that. And one of the main things I like about Stranger Things is that they have 1 or 2 unrealistic like sci-fi things that you have to buy into, but the rest of the show is pretty grounded in reality. Like the only 2 unrealistic things you have to buy into are one that this girl has telekinetic powers, right? And 2 that there's this alternate dimension, the other side. So it's like 2 unrealistic things, or maybe realistic depending on the viewer's opinion, but they stop there. They don't keep building on the crazy and the unrealistic stuff. So it doesn't feel like you're watching something nonsensical. It feels realistic. And I think for a movie, a TV show, a video game, the less that they ask you to buy, like the less that they ask you to suspend your disbelief on, the more effective it is.
I think I'd agree with you. I think that if it strays off slightly or there's its own lore or mythos to it, it's fine. When they start stretching it so far that it sort of changes the feeling of it. So I know what you're saying.
And coming back to Resident Evil, I'm by no means an expert on the RE lore, but um, I get the sense that if you really want to follow the storyline, there's just too much crazy built into it. You know, with like the different types of viruses and the
Yeah.
Wesker guy coming back to life, and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it jumped the shark at one point and they were just kind of throwing random shit in there.
Yeah, yeah, just to try to keep it interesting, but you don't really have to go nuts to keep fan interest.
Yeah, I think
That's my
sometimes
opinion.
the simplistic approach is the best approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, one of my other, I have a couple more favorite horror games. I think Condemned 1 and 2 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Those are up there for me. They're kind of like RE7, they're first person, like survival horror, very grounded in horror. They do turn like science fictiony towards the end of the second game, but it was still good. Um, Another one of my favorites is Deadly Premonition, which is very schlocky and goofy and silly, and it's very close to something like Twin Peaks. I don't know if you've seen that TV show.
I know a little about it, no, but I've never seen it.
It starts off again grounded, and then it just goes into like very weird directions. But they're so weird, and the world and the universe is sort of so strange that I don't say it's believable. It feels almost like a bad dream. And Deadly Premonition takes a lot from Twin Peaks. It's a big inspiration. So while you're playing the game, it doesn't have the best graphics, doesn't have the best controls, very quirky and goofy, but it's also got like an interesting, weird horror element where you want to just keep learning more about it, even though it's just completely batshit.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask, did you ever play Eternal Darkness on the GameCube?
I did play a little bit of it. I didn't get very far. Um, I do remember getting tricked when I played it. Like, what the hell's happening? Why did my system shut off? Or why did, my character's head get chopped off or whatever? And then you find out that the game is sort of like playing a joke on you.
Yeah, and I never finished the game either. I got pretty far into it, but I started to get frustrated with the game mechanics. I'm really much like a control guy. If I feel like the control scheme, um, isn't enjoyable, I'll just stop playing the game. But for those of you watching who've never played it, you can check out a few clips on YouTube. Eternal Darkness came out for the GameCube, and as far as I know, it was the first game to ever do this, and maybe to this date the only one where, in addition to having a health meter and a magic meter, your character also had a
Sanity.
psychological meter, right?
Yeah.
Where basically the more monsters you encounter, um, as you encounter more monsters, your psychological meter or whatever starts to decrease, as if like your health meter would decrease when you're taking damage. And when the meter starts to get very low, the game starts playing tricks on you as if the character you're playing is hallucinating. So, for example, you'll start to hear random music playing from out of nowhere. You'll hear voices in the background. Um, I know there's one trick they do where it brings up a volume bar on your TV, like as if you took the remote and you were lowering the volume, and it'll do that and lower the volume and then raise it up again. Sometimes it will pretend that you accidentally hit the reset button on the system, and it takes you back to the opening screen of the game. All kinds of crazy stuff, like the walls start to bleed and everything. I'd never seen anything like that. I thought that was really, really cool. Like just I
Yeah.
never really had a game before that I felt like it was trying to mess with my head.
Yeah, I think that was definitely an interesting thing. I don't know how much they've done it in the past few years. I think certain games have touched upon it, but I still don't think they've done it as far as Eternal Darkness. But I could be wrong. I don't play a lot of the new releases. There's a chance I miss something. Plus PC
Yeah, but
games. I don't play PC games really, and PC games have a lot of stuff out there that I've never heard of that has a lot of interesting concepts and mechanics that I don't, play.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since I've had my finger on the pulse. I mean, Breath of the Wild is the only new game that I've played in several years, really.
I
So,
just beat that today, actually.
okay, you beat the main quest.
Yeah, I beat it today. I don't want to talk too much about it. It's not horror related, um,
We're changing subject, people.
but I did a video on it and I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. So that's all. I'll keep it at that, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
one of my favorite,
Wait,
and I think, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
well, since we're talking about Zelda, I've always thought that there were certain parts of the Zelda games for the N64, for example, that had a like a horror element to them. Did you ever play Ocarina of Time?
I didn't play them, but I know that like moon in the sky and like everything gets dark at one point and stuff.
So yeah, the game that came after that is Majora's Mask, where in 3 days the world ends. So you have to keep resetting time, and there's a moon that gradually gets closer and closer to crashing into the Earth. So that game has a lot of creepy elements to it. But even in Ocarina of Time, which preceded it, it has a couple of um, parts that were kind of scary, especially if you were playing it as a kid. And I'm sure some of the people watching will know what I'm talking about. There's a part in the game where, as Child Link, you have to go down this well. You have to drain the well of its water, and then there's a ladder. You go down the ladder, and it leads to this underground tunnel. And so there's this underground area where I think people used to be tortured or something like that. So it has all these zombies and ghosts in there, and the music's very eerie. I remember playing that as as a kid and thinking like this is pretty scary. It's pretty intense. So the
Right.
Zelda games, they do throw some horror stuff in there into some of their games.
That reminded me now that you said it. I do like when there's little bits of horror or something has a horror kind of veil over it, even though it may not be a horror game. Dark Souls. I really love the Dark Souls series. I got into them the past couple of years. Started on two, played through three, and then went back and played one. And now they're remastering and re-releasing one, which I may buy. Um, the Dark Souls series doesn't really look like a horror game, though. I mean, I guess it could in a sense because there's lots of demons, there's lots of grotesque imagery, and it's gory. But when you're playing that game and you're on the edge of your seat and you're by yourself, and like a real person comes into your game and invades you to try to kill you, or you get some like big monster and you're by yourself, that game has such a risk reward and like horror feeling to it that I would probably classify it as like an action RPG with horror overtones. Even though I don't think most people say it's horror, um, I would probably put it in there with horror because I think it definitely puts you on the edge of your seat um, playing through the Dark Souls series. I think between the imagery and just the mechanics.
Okay, so it's an action RPG franchise.
Yeah, but it makes you like learn things. It's always very fair. It's not like it's unfair and making the difficulty spike on you like screw this guy, let's make it really hard. It's fair, but you have to know how to play their game. And once you learn the mechanics and then start upgrading your guy and getting better armor or whatever, um, you can kind of bypass anything. But you have to know how to play the game and you have to be willing to take a loss and learn from your mistakes. That's kind of the
Okay, like trial and
overarching,
error.
very trial
All
and
right.
error-ish in a way. Um,
So I think you had another game that you were going to mention. I can't think of any other horror video games at the moment. Like I remember liking Resident Evil Zero, the opening phase when you're on that train. But I can't really think of anything else. Do you have anything else for as far as video games?
from what I played of Zero, I think I played a little bit of it on the GameCube. I liked it. Resident Evil 2, I always thought was my favorite, but I didn't again get very far. Um, you should check out if you like Resident Evil a lot. Check out the NES. I guess it's Famicom English translation. There's definitely a ROM online of Sweet Home. Sweet Home was a game they based off of a Japanese horror movie, and Resident Evil takes a lot from Sweet Home, except Sweet Home is a turn-based RPG like Earthbound, but for the NES, but very grotesque for its time, very bloody for its time, creepy. Um, but there's an English patch. So you can download a ROM and an emulator or whatever, or even you could buy a cartridge that's already patched. Um, and it's supposed to be really good. And I think that would be up your alley because it mixes Earthbound and horror, sort of in a way,
Oh,
like the RPG elements of Earthbound with horror of Resident Evil.
okay, and it's for the NES?
Yeah, it's for the NES. I mean, I would probably just, get an emulator and a ROM and play through it that way. But if you have an NES sitting around and you want to buy the cartridge, you could do that too, I guess.
All right, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, Sweet Home.
Oh, one thing I want to throw out there, those of you watching, if you know the name of this game, type it in the comments section, please. I played a game with some friends. I think it originally came out for the PlayStation 1 or the PlayStation 2. It takes place in Japan, and you're this kid who goes to your high school at night. Like you break into the school and you're not supposed to be there. And it has something to do with a girl getting kidnapped, and there's a security guard with a baseball bat and a bum leg, and he's always patrolling the school, and if he sees you, he blows his whistle and chases after you, and he tries to hit you with the bat. If anyone remembers the name of that game, type it into the comments section because I'm curious now. And is it familiar to you, Mike?
It sounds familiar. You think it was PlayStation 1?
Probably PlayStation 2, I think.
Could it have been Obscure?
That doesn't sound like the name. Like it's not ringing a bell.
I mean, I know the Clock Tower series was on PlayStation 1. I love the Clock Tower. Well, the first one, second one was pretty good. The third one was good. It was just different, but the first one was the best. Third one, though, no. Shadows of Destiny, but I don't think that had anything to do with a high school.
Yeah, I feel like if you told me the name, I would recognize it, but I can't think what it is.
Definitely horror-based, though.
Yeah. Something with a girl who's a ghost and
Fatal Frame?
with a baseball bat, huh?
Fatal Frame?
No, I don't think so.
There's no camera elements to it?
Not from what I saw, no.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah, we're gonna have to rely on your audience to find out for us.
Yes, someone will know.
Yeah.
I just did a quick Google search and it mentioned Obscure.
Maybe it is Obscure.
The Suffering, that wasn't in high school though. Obscure was multiplayer though, but you do go to a high school and there's like
this wasn't multiplayer.
At least the second one was. I don't know if the first one was. Oh no, the first one was.
I guess you can say I asked you an obscure question.
That you did.
Ooh, good night, everybody.
Another one of my favorites, which I don't know if you've played, is the Silent Hill series.
Yeah, I remember watching the movie, and I watched my friends play parts of, not the first Silent Hill, but I want to say maybe it was the second one or the third one. The movie, I thought was very, very creepy. It got a little I feel like it got a little crazy toward the end, right, as these things tend to do. But I thought it was very atmospheric.
I thought the first movie was really good. Yeah, the second one was okay, but the first one's good. I played through Silent. I was on like a kick, so I bought all the games and I played through 2, 3, The Room. I played all of them, even the Vita one. They had like a PlayStation Vita, like Diablo type game where you run around and like hit things and upgrade your guy. I pretty much tried to play everything except the first game. I didn't play. I didn't have a way to play it. And I would say they're definitely some of my favorite horror games. And 2 and 3, 2 especially, is really atmospheric, really creepy, and I would have nightmares. I would go to bed and actually have nightmares because the game would bother me, kind of on like a psychological level. It wasn't even like particularly like a vision. It was more like it bothered me internally to see what was around the corner. So when I would go to sleep, I'd sort of be uneasy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was effective then. Yeah. So let me ask you a question now. Transitioning into movies, I know we all know you're a big horror buff, and a movie buff in general. So give me in no particular order, unless you have it, give me your top 5 horror movies. If you have to
Jacob's
pick.
Ladder. Jacob's Ladder is probably number one. It was like similar to Silent Hill. It's like a psychological horror. The Exorcist 1 and 3. I think those are really great. I think 1 is just I've never watched a movie as creepy as 1, but 3 is more detective like story interesting to me.
And that's the 3 is the one that has Patrick Ewing as an angel, right?
Yes. Yeah, and Fabio.
Yeah, I need to watch that sometime.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. And not as creepy as 1, but interesting. I find it more interesting than 1. And then I would throw in there Suspiria is up there for me with this girl who goes to a ballet school and all this creepy stuff starts happening. That's a classic. And I like Pumpkinhead a lot. I think he's a kind of underrated, interesting, like sort of B horror icon. And then, then I go off into like Hellraiser I like a lot, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre is pretty good. Trying to think. I think those are probably my favorites. What about you?
Wait, so Texas Chainsaw doesn't make your top 5?
I don't know if it makes my top 5. It's definitely up towards it, but I prefer psychological horror to like rip and shred, slasher films.
Okay. All right. My top 5, in no particular order. And by the way, I was always curious about Jacob's Ladder, so I need to check that out.
That's a great movie. Yeah, you got to check that out.
If I have to give you a top 5, I'm going to put Exorcist 1 in there for sure. That movie really stands the test of time. And Exorcist 2, not that good. With the girl, like they record her voice. It has creepy elements to it, like the whole voice recording thing. Like there was potential there. All right, so Exorcist 1, Jeepers Creepers for the first half. The second half gets kind of loses something once you see the monster. Have you seen Jeepers Creepers?
I saw it years ago, and then when the new one came out on Netflix, I watched like a quarter of it. I couldn't get into it, but I know everyone makes a big deal about how the writer and director was like charged with molesting a boy or raping a boy when he was younger. So like people kind of boycotted his films once they found out.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, the first half of Jeepers Creepers is good up until you actually see the monster, and then it just loses something. I think it was the first half has that suspense where you don't know who and what's going on. So I'm going to say, because of the first half, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say Candyman. I'm a big fan of Candyman.
Yeah, I love Candyman. That's up there too. That's a good one.
It's great, and it also has like this sort of subplot of like economic inequality and poverty and stuff, because it takes place in the Capri Green Chicago projects and all this stuff. So I'm going to say Candyman number 3. This movie that's not too well known, it's called Session 9.
I know it. I know it.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, Session 9, David Caruso has a small part in it. This guy, he's an asbestos cleaner, and he and his crew go into this abandoned mental hospital, like a mental ward, to clean out the asbestos. And the guy starts to gradually lose his mind, and he finds this tape, like a cassette player, with these recordings of one of the psychologists interviewing a mental patient who's schizophrenic. And he's listening to their conversations on tape while inhaling this asbestos and whatever. And you find out that he's also having problems at home, where like he hit his wife. And I don't want to ruin the ending, but it's just like this really like, slow burn, unsettling movie. So if you're into that kind of stuff, God help you. And I recommend you watch Session 9. And
Can I know say something real quick?
Yeah.
So I love Candyman as well. So I agree with you. That's definitely up there for me. I saw 2 and 3, and they were okay, but 1 was really good.
Yeah.
I have it on Blu-ray. The other thing was, you said slow burn. I really, and I know this is usually against what people say, I really like Rob Zombie's films. I thought 31 was pretty good. I like the Halloween remake. I like the Halloween sequel. I really like Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. Check out, some people really don't like this one. This is his probably least favorite for most people. Check out Lords of Salem.
Oh,
It's
heard about
a
that.
it's a movie about witches, but it's a very slow burn, creepy, weird movie. And if you don't mind slow burn films, I thought it was done very well. So I would add that to your list if you haven't seen it.
Okay, yeah. The only zombie films I've seen, I think, are the two Halloween remakes, and I personally like the originals better.
Yeah,
I
I
tell
like
you
the
what,
original too.
just to fill out my top five, and again, I know I'm forgetting a couple of things here. Um, Maybe I'll throw in like the Halloweens in general, like 1, 2, 4, and 5. I enjoy. 3, Season of the Witch. That's a
I like
tough
that
one.
one a lot.
You like that one? Okay.
I do like that one a lot.
Oh,
I know it has nothing to do with Michael Myers really, but I like it a lot. I thought it was a good. I wouldn't even have minded if the series did something different every time, which is what they wanted to do initially. But I know
what
people don't
happens
like it.
again? It's like there's a company that makes these three masks, these three Halloween masks, and because they have great marketing skills, every kid buys one of these three masks, and like
Yeah.
they put the masks on, and then like what happens again?
When they play this jingle on this advertisement on the TV, the masks start to take over the kids and sort of like kill them and then like release these bugs and spiders and snakes
Yeah,
and something to do with the guys getting power from Stonehenge or something.
that's
And
right. Yeah, yeah. They're Stonehenge druids,
yeah, and there's like
and
robots
and,
at one
and
point.
yeah, there's all kinds of shit in the movie.
Yeah,
Stonehenge robots and possessed masks and that guy with the mustache who's going to save everybody.
yeah,
But I'm glad I saw it.
yeah. I
Um,
like all those movies. They're good, the Halloween movies.
and one other movie I'll mention. It's not really a horror movie. It's more like suspense, and it fits in the mold of the slow burn Zodiac.
That
Did you
was
see
good.
that one
That was good.
with
Yep.
Jake Gyllenhaal? And that's such a slow burn, and I really it's a very creepy movie, and I really enjoyed watching that.
That was a
So I
good
highly
one.
recommend Zodiac to anyone
Yeah.
watching.
I think I had it on DVD and I watched it a couple times. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch it again and again and again. So I ended up, I think, giving it away or selling it or something. But I do like that movie. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah. That being said, I
Um,
don't really watch a lot of horror. I did the last horror movie that I saw, and it was the first one in a while, was the remake of It. I thought I know it made a ton of money and a lot of people liked it. I thought it was really scary. I thought it was a good horror movie.
I liked it. I thought it was good. I think it kind of reminded me of the Goonies a little bit. So I liked it. I thought it was a good movie.
When did you watch the original when it was on television back in the day?
No, I didn't watch the original until I think either I had it on DVD or somebody loaned it to me on DVD. And I remember having to flip the disc over because it was so long and I couldn't really get into it. I thought it was very slow, but I prefer the remake.
Yeah, I mean the remake it's very heavy on the gore, but it's effective in other ways as well. The original one, when that was on TV and I saw it as a kid, like that, it really creeped me out. Scared the heck out of me, and I think out of a lot of people. And if you watch it now, it's a lot easier to watch, but you can still kind of pick up on why it freaked you out when you watched it as a kid. Like you
Mm,
can still kind of appreciate what was good about the movie.
yeah. Trying to think of what else. I like the Maniac Cop movies, but I wouldn't. I guess they're like B horror. They're not
I
scary at
never heard of
all.
it.
They're more like interesting, cheesy movies. Maniac Cop 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 are very good. 3 is pretty good. And then TV show wise, I would say Twin Peaks is probably my favorite for like a horror
They
type of TV show.
That was out in the early '90s first, right? And then they recently brought it back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm very torn with the third season. I think, and I know this is kind of not the general consensus, but season one was a little more grounded. Season two got very strange. Season three was completely abstract and weird and a lot like David Lynch's other films and other media. So a lot of things were answered, and then a lot of things weren't answered, and then some things like I'd watch it. I remember sitting here like watching it, and Beth is just like looking at me like I'm nuts, and I'm watching it. And I'm going, why am I watching like 10 minutes of some guy making a noise or yelling or whatever, and like nothing actually happening? Where I wanted something a little more grounded in reality, or something at least a little more fleshed out to where I felt like some kind of closure to the series, because I never thought it would come back and really finish off. So it was very disappointing for me, even though I do want to eventually check it out again once my wounds on it heal.
Okay, and this just reminds me, I'm gonna do a callback to Zelda, which we were talking about before. The Game Boy Zelda game, I think it was called Link's Awakening, where I think he's having a bad dream and he winds up on this island and he has to wake himself up or something like that. I came across an article that said the game developer for Link's Awakening was inspired by Twin Peaks.
Oh,
So if anyone watching is a fan of either or both, just Google Link's Awakening Twin Peaks, and you can probably find the article. It might be interesting to you.
oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So is our next video going to be about our favorite romantic comedies? Like, our favorite movies of a secretary who finds a perfect guy, and
Yeah,
things
sure.
like
I
that.
mean, I can name off the top of my head Danny Deck Chair and Love Actually, and oh crap, what's the other one? With the girl with the heart, Minnie Driver. Um,
The Girl with the Heart.
yeah, Minnie Driver gets a heart transplant. Uh, hold on, Return to
Is
Me.
David Duchovny in it?
Yes,
Return to
Return to
Me.
Me. Yes,
Okay.
I like that one a lot. That's a really cute film.
I like A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore.
Oh,
That one makes me tear up a bit.
I was thinking of Walk in the Clouds with Keanu Reeves. Sorry.
Is that with Charlize Theron, where like she's dying or something?
That's Sweet November.
No.
That one's really good too, but it's very sad.
I feel like half these romantic movies involve the woman dying, or like having a terminal illness.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're definitely right. I'd say so.
Yeah.
But
So here's an
anything else
idea.
you
How
want to talk about horror wise?
um like I said, I'm sure as soon as we go offline, I'm going to remember a couple of things. But I think that's about it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite genre by any stretch, but every now and then it's a lot of fun to watch a good horror movie, especially if you can watch it with friends or with a girl. And I get inspired when I watch. Oh shoot! You posted something on Facebook a couple weeks ago, and I had completely forgotten about this, but I used to watch it when I was a kid. Is it called Creep Show, where the boy gets that video game? Like he's alone in his house,
Brain
and he
Scan.
brain scan.
Yeah.
Okay, brain scan. What was scary? Like it used to. It was a movie that they would play on those movie channels late at night, over and over again. For those of you who haven't seen it, and I'll let you add to the plot. This kid who I think he's like kind of like a spoiled kid and doesn't have a lot of friends. I think his parents leave him home alone for a weekend or something, and he gets this PC video game, and a character in the game. He's sort of like a Freddy Krueger type of guy. He comes to life, and I think he tells the kid to go out and kill people, and he does. And I don't remember too much. I remember the scene like he breaks his fingers
Yeah.
in front of the kid, and I remember when like after the night after the kid kills people, the cops show up to his house, and they're like, what were we doing last night? And uh, we saw you burning your clothes or something, like you burned your clothes in a fireplace. Why'd you do that? And so that was a really cool movie. Do you have anything to add to it? Because you might know it better than I do.
Yeah, well, only because I watched it recently with Beth. I've seen it over the years. I have it on DVD. I like how they mix, reality with the video game world. I always like anything with video games. They, you don't know what's real and what's part of the game, and then when the game starts bleeding into the real world and those things start happening, I always find that stuff interesting. Another like horror kind of game movie with game elements is Arcade, where these people play this arcade game and like it starts sucking people into the game and they have to like get their way out of it. It's like sort of trapping people in the game. So I like stuff like that.
One other thing I can think of that's horror related. Are you a fan of the Freddy Krueger movies?
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of the early ones. I got the first one and maybe the second and third. From what I understand, the movies kind of got progressively worse, and a big reason was that they started to veer into comedy too much. Like they started to make Freddy Krueger be funny and cute. Do you agree with that? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say they started getting cheesier and initially like Freddy Krueger's this badass and he's like going to people's dreams and murdering them. And then it started getting into like people fighting back almost like superheroes. And then he became like a joke. Then he would like make weird pop culture references and like say quotes that were kind of like funnier and offbeat. So yeah, it definitely they added some comedy elements to it after a while.
Yeah, it's like the character starts winking into the camera, you know.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So, and you don't have to answer this if it makes you uncomfortable. Being a
I have to
person,
answer it now.
yeah, being a person who is religious or spiritual, does The Exorcist bother you on any level being a religious man?
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't bother me. Um, I don't know that I don't think there's anything about it that offends me. Like, I mean, there's a scene where like she masturbates with a crucifix, but um, it's all part of the the storyline. So no, I think it's I think it's a great movie. I don't know how seriously to take it or not take it. I kind of just take it as a horror film. But no, it's a movie that I would recommend that people who are into horror watch
Okay.
for sure.
Just
I
curious
don't recommend the second one.
yeah, the second one I don't recommend either. I have the whole set with then they did a prequel and they didn't like it. So they did another prequel with some of the same film, but some new film added. So there's two prequels in the same location with completely not different stories. They're like similar stories, but then they had changed. It was very weird that they made two prequels from the same footage, sort of, and then like added more to one of them.
Yeah, yeah. And again, Patrick Ewing has a cameo in The Exorcist Part 3. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen that clip. So I was a huge Patrick Ewing fan as a kid.
Oh, me too. He was
So
my favorite. I have his basketball cards and his autograph and stuff. He was my favorite as a kid.
Yeah, he was my hero for sure.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think I stopped watching basketball when he got traded to the Sonics. I was like, screw this, and I just stopped watching.
Yeah, I lived and breathed for the Knicks in the '90s when they lost Game 7 of the 1994 Finals to Houston. It broke my heart. I think it took a couple of years off my life. Then they got close again in '95 in the conference finals. That was just such a. I think like they were lacking in talent, but they tried to make up for it with just hard, gritty play. And I just feel like they really embodied New York. And when they traded Ewing, and I want to say it was in 2000, I think. When that happened, I was kind of like, well, feels like this is it for me, And I never really followed the Knicks after that.
I've never been a sports guy. I mean, I guess if you would consider wrestling sports, fake wrestling, or professional wrestling. I don't mean to be pejorative and say fake, but
it's real to me, man.
Yeah. But basketball was the only thing I was into as a teen, and that's all there was. I'd go outside and there was a basketball hoop and concrete. That was it. There wasn't soccer, nets. There wasn't baseball fields. So that's where I played basketball. And then I got into the Knicks, and as I got older and, stopped watching, and then he got traded. So, yeah, it broke my heart a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, Ewing was he was a very talented shooter, and he was an excellent rebounder, and he was excellent on defense. I think he doesn't get appreciated quite as much as he should, because I think people look at Hakeem Olajuwon, who I would say was better on offense. I don't know if he was better on defense and rebounding per se, but Olajuwon was flashier, and people talk about David Robinson, and then Shaq came along and kind of changed the game. But Ewing was very talented, and he was just a hard worker. He used to play with his legs taped up because he had all those injuries to his hamstrings and his knees. He broke his wrist at one point, and that set him back a lot. But he was sort of the embodiment of just a hard, gritty player who took pride in what he did.
Yeah.
And he always tried his best. And, unfortunately, he always came up short. But I feel like that taught me important lessons growing up. And, to this day, I'll say he's, if you ask me who my favorite sports fans are, and like you, I'm not a big sports fan at this stage of my life, but I think of Mariano Rivera and I think of Patrick Ewing as my two favorites.
So the moral of the story is watch The Exorcist 3.
Yes. So you can see Patrick Ewing with angel wings on his back.
Yes. Yes. For what he went through in New York, he probably will gain his wings when he passes away one day.
There you go.
So, but yeah, anything else you wanted to add before we cut this off, Rich?
No, just thanks again for having me on your show. Thanks to your fans for watching. And I have an idea for you. I feel like we do this every time there's a holiday, because I come home to my parents for the weekend and, we make time to hang out. Maybe your fans can suggest our next topic to discuss.
I was about to say the same thing. So if anyone has any ideas or something they'd like to hear me and Rich, bullshit about, please put it in the comments and we'll pick one.
Yeah.
Or two. Or 10.
Please do, guys. Give us your ideas, please.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for watching. I appreciate you tuning in, checking out me and my buddy Rich. Rich, you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye, Sega CD Universe fans. Thanks for watching. Mike's an awesome guy, and happy to hang out with you.
Thank you very much. Feelings mutual. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Vampire Mike and Rich from Sega CD Universe. Be good.